Welcome to Sports Econ 101. This is the show where we discuss sports topics from a business perspective. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-host, Mike McDowd. I'm not sure where Russell is. Maybe he slept in a little bit too much today after the holiday weekend. At each commercial break, we're going to ask a sports trivia question. Today's theme is miscellaneous baseball trivia. All right, we've been doing a lot of basketball, and we'll probably come back to it because we're just about in the finals today. And we're going to introduce our special guest, Dave Popkin, in the next segment coming up here in just a short bit. But hey, Celtics 4-0 over the Pacers.
Well, Edward, I told you that that would be the team in the finals because, quite frankly, the West is such a better competitive overall league than the East. And the Celtics did what the Celtics expected to do. And where are they? They're in the finals. Quite frankly, can't really envision. I think the Mavericks are pretty good.
They are. Were you a little surprised that the Nuggets just got sort of exited out?
Yeah, I am.
I know. I was too. I mean, Timberwolves are good, but I think next year they're going to be really good. They're just coming out. Anthony Edwards, he's definitely one of those guys you definitely want to watch come into his own. He's already doing well. I noticed Russell finally joined us here. Russell, did you oversleep?
No, you guys started early.
No, it's a little after 8:30. Thank you very much on a Tuesday morning. All right, stay with us, audience. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. When we get back, we're going to introduce our special guest, veteran sportscaster Dave Popkin. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, along with Mike McDowd, our other co-host, Russell Jackman, who he says he did not sleep in, and I totally trust him. And now we're going to introduce our special guest, Dave Popkin, who is a veteran sportscaster. Dave, welcome to Sports Econ 101.
Hey, gents. Thanks for having me.
Good. All right. What are we going to talk about today? Because, Dave, first of all, tell us who you are broadcasting with.
Well, I've been with Seton Hall, the men's basketball team, for the last 21 years. Gary Cohen is my partner. He's the TV voice of the Mets, so that's been a good opportunity for me to work with him and learn and become a better broadcaster. I'm also the TV voice of the Northeast Conference, going into my 25th year doing that on various networks like CBS Sports Network and ESPN Plus, and we've been on Yes and SNY in New York and MSG over the years. So that's fun. And I do minor league baseball for the Buffalo Bisons and all kinds of other stuff, about 90 games a year. So it's good. It's good.
Yeah, I see all the baseballs in the background there.
It's my first love. Lifelong baseball fan. I've done over 20 years of minor league baseball and college baseball. So it's like breathing for me. I just did 11 games in 5 days, the Northeast Conference baseball tournament, and a little tired from that one, but it was fun.
Oh, I bet. Well, and then when it goes into extra innings, you go, I want to get home a little early today.
Yeah, the pitch clock has helped. It's been a game changer for announcers and fans, for sure, even in college baseball. But now they go to replay on any kind of a close play, so it still takes forever.
Yeah, one of our older co-hosts, Bruce McGowan, who used to be with us, one time he was telling us there was something going wrong, either with it was either rain delay or something, and he didn't have his cohort with him, and he had to do 3 hours by himself. Wow. It's a little challenging. Yeah, always so many stories. Go ahead, Mike.
Oh no, I was totally. You do Bison's baseball. I got to ask you. That yard that they planned looks pretty darn sweet, is it not?
It is. It's a really good minor league stadium, to the point where when the players couldn't come back and forth across the border during COVID, the Toronto Blue Jays played there, and the Blue Jays put a lot of money into the stadium, so it's nicer than ever. The clubhouses and all of the amenities there. it's terrific. I would call it a 4A stadium more than a AAA stadium. And I actually have not gotten to do a game there, even though this is my 11th year with the team. They always send me on the road. So when Duke McGuire, the longtime color commentator and Buffalo Baseball Hall of Famer, can't make a trip, they send me. So I do about 25, 30 games a year, and it's just enough.
Let me ask you, what was it like doing games during COVID?
It was very strange.
I bet.
Yeah, the baseball took the whole year off, and then in 21 came back, and Buffalo actually played closer to me in Trenton, New Jersey, because the Blue Jays took over their stadium in Buffalo, as I mentioned. So I got to see the team and do some of the games in Trenton. And then basketball was stranger because we would be in person, but like up top and removed from the court so that we were away from the players for the home games. And for most of the road games, we were just in a studio doing it off the monitor. And there was one particular game where the game was on Fox and they were still doing like post-game interviews from monster trucks or something like that. And the game had started. So we had to like get some kind of a different feed off of a phone, off of a stream, so that I could physically do the play-by-play on the radio from the studio. There was like literally somebody from Learfield running in with a phone so that I could call the opening tip off of his cell phone.
Crazy. Russell, do you want to ask any questions of Dave here?
What would you say is the hardest play to call in baseball?
Anything odd. Because I'm not doing it every day right now, anything that's out of the ordinary is a challenge. Like the other night, first and third play, 2 outs, and the runner from first takes off and purposely gets hung up between first and third, and the runner scores, and I couldn't see. I'm trying to look at two things at once, and I couldn't see. Did he actually score before they tagged him out between first and second? They were essentially just trying to steal a run. Anything odd like that that happens. Other than that, a triple with the bases loaded, that kind of thing is difficult because you're trying to, on radio, capture as much of it as possible for the listener and say, okay, the ball goes to the wall, 1 run scores. Picked up by Jones in right, hits the cutoff man, second runner scores. They're waving in the third runner, and here comes the play to the plate. Surratt scores. It's a 3-run double for so-and-so. So it's a lot of fast play-by-play after not doing that for minutes, maybe. The ball's only in play for about 8 minutes of a 3-hour game. So it's like, wait, hurry up.
Very interesting.
Hey, Dave, what about the fact when you're doing 25 games, and I can relate to what you're doing, being a play-by-play guy myself, but when do you finally feel like, you do the first game of the season, the second game, okay, that's nice. But you and I both know it's all about rhythm. It's all about rhythm. When do you feel like you actually get into rhythm? Because 25 games is not 100 and whatever the hell it is now, 180 games, whatever they do. But that, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. After so much baseball, it doesn't take long. I asked Dave O'Brien from ESPN one time, in spring training, how long does it take you to get ready for the season? He goes, well, 1-2 pitches.
Fair.
I like that.
That's a good answer.
That's really good.
Yeah. On TV, it's a lot easier. On radio, because I like to tell stories and digress and things like that, I just always have to remind myself to value the pitch and value the ball and not talk through that, because then something crazy happens and you're not ready. You're not really set and you haven't taken control of the broadcast. So I think that's the thing that I concentrate on the first game back in radio every time, is just handle the basics, concentrate on the ball, and then go from there.
Yeah, I was going to say before we go to a break here, and when we come back, I know Mike's got a story he wants to talk about with Bill Walton. But since you love baseball so much, and I know the guys have heard this, I won't go into the whole story, but basically in 1974, when my mom's great uncle came to visit us and he found out that I loved baseball, he would tell me that he used to watch Honus Wagner play.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I mean that's the beauty of baseball, that you can pass down those stories and that fandom.
Yeah,
I remember my grandfather telling me about how much he loved the St. Louis Cardinals because of the Gas House Gang, and then I've subsequently
definitely.
learned a
Yeah,
lot about
yeah,
that. So that's the best part of
yeah.
baseball, is the history, I think.
And for me, because I think I'm the oldest one here. I mean, for me, watching Willie Mays, Bobby Bonds, Willie McCovey, because being here
Dave
in the
says
Bay Area. Go ahead,
Cardinals, and
Mike.
I say, hey, any of you guys got any front any advantage to going to see the Giants Cardinals game at Rick Woods Field? That game, that's the toughest ticket in the world. They're playing in Birmingham. And it's going to be a once in a lifetime opportunity where all the old Negro League teams played. Willie Mays, Willie McCovey, Hank Aaron. I've been there once, but I got to tell you, that's going to be one of the great opportunities in life to see these two legendary teams play at Rick Woods Field, the oldest ballpark in America. Have you been there, Dave?
I haven't been there, but the only other active stadium that was used for Negro League games is Hinchliffe Stadium, and it's in Paterson, New Jersey, which is a couple miles from my house. So I went there to a game last year. The New Jersey Jackals play there, and they did a pretty good job renovating it. So it's cool.
All right, guys, we're going to cut to our commercial break here. We're talking miscellaneous baseball questions. And again, Dave, if you know the answer, don't say anything quite yet. All right, which baseball player had exactly 3,630 hits, exactly 1,815 were on the road and 1,850 were at home? You know this one, right? Okay. Yeah, I can't figure it. The guy's a baseball guy. He'll know this question. All right. Well, I'm going to ask it one more time. Which baseball player had 3,630 career hits? Exactly 1,815 were on the road and 1,850 were at home. Stay with us. Sports Econ 101. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, along with Mike McDowd, our special guest, Dave Popkin, and our other co-host, Russell Jackson. There's too many Micks around here. Okay. What I mean by that is McDowd, McDonald, etc. Okay, here we go. Baseball question number one. Which baseball player had 3,630 career hits, exactly 1,815 on the road and 1,850 at home? All right, Dave, what's the answer?
Stan Musial.
Stan the Man Musial. Very good.
I met him.
What was he like?
You met him? Oh, wow.
What a gentleman. Oh, he's the best. Very gentle, very cool. He was nice.
Yeah, that's so great. That's kind of a.
And he was.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that I'm trying to remember in the late 30s, mostly the 40s is when he really kind of came into his own. But I'm thinking because of the war, was he in World War II and then came out? I know Ted Williams did that,
missed
but
5 years.
remember.
Yeah, I don't think Musial missed that much time if he was in the service.
Okay. Boy, you really kind of wonder what would have happened, like for someone like Ted Williams during those 5 years, because those were like 5 pivotal years.
He was the greatest hitter of all time as it was. He would have had over 700 home runs if he would have played those years.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, he was my dad's favorite, even though my dad grew up in Brooklyn and was a big Dodger fan, but Ted Williams was his favorite. Let me just shift over here for just a minute because unfortunately we lost Bill Walton. What a character that guy was. Mike, you were going to mention like meeting him?
Yeah, no. Bill Walton, first of all, I'm going to say one of the top 5 centers to ever play the game. Loved him. He could be dominant. I remember as a kid watching him at UCLA. Then he goes to the Portland Trailblazers, wins a championship in '77, I believe, and MVP. Just the basketball is great, but what really matters when it's all said and done is the person is Bill. And I can tell you that back in the '90s, I covered the Golden State Warriors, and in the 2000s as well. But I see this big tall guy walking towards me, and our paths are coming right at each other. And I'm like, holy cow, that's Bill Walton. And he's like, hey, stop. Basically comes right in front of my face. Hey, how are you, my man? And it just starts talking to me. I'm like, what? Bill Walton's talking to me? Like I was in awe of him, And you've heard all these stories. Oh, Bill's one of the nicest guys you ever meet. Fiercest competitor on the basketball court, but in life, truly. You cannot fake passion. You cannot fake authenticity. The guy was as nice as they say he was. Asked him questions. I got to talk to him a little bit, but it's just one of the great, authentic, organic conversations I've ever had with any athlete. I feel absolutely blessed. So thank you, Bill Walton, for being,
Can you imagine if
so nice
if he
to me.
wasn't? He kept getting hurt, and that's what really was. He was great the way he was, but boy, can you imagine some of these guys, like if they didn't get hurt, how much better they'd be.
I mean, Dave can speak to that as well.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, he was dominated. It's like Sandy Koufax. I mean, if he pitched another 5 or 10 years, the numbers that he would have put up are crazy. But that's one of the great regrets of my career, that I never got to work with Bill Walton, because he was so crazy on the air. And it would be like riding a roller coaster. And I feel like I would have been good at that, to kind of try to rein him in, but encourage him too.
He was. I don't know if you guys did know a guy from the Bay Area by the name of Roxy Bernstein, works for ESPN,
Sure.
And so Roxy worked with Bill, and hope to have Roxy and Ralph Lawler, with the former Los Angeles Clippers play-by-play guy, next week to talk about the life and times of Bill, because Bill was he was a once-in-a-lifetime guy. There's never going to be anything like that. He's up there with his tie-dye, he's like rubbing dirt all over himself. Come on, who does that? That is awesome. All I can say to Bill Walton is, God bless your soul. I hope he's safely and securely in heaven. What a guy.
Yeah, it's funny, and I keep thinking about the movie Airplane, when Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is a pilot, right? And he's trying to say that he's not Jabbar, and then finally tells the kid, he goes, "Hey, you tell your dad to go try and go up the court with Walton all the time."
I just read something about that, actually, which is kind of funny, is that Kareem was actually really bothered by that kid constantly telling him, going over the lines over and over again. He kept emphasizing, how bad Kareem had been playing. And so Kareem really grabbed the kid, and it was not part of the take where he grabs him and holds him and shakes him. He was just supposed to yell at him, and the kid was not expecting it. And so that look in his eyes is actually genuine of how scared he was of Kareem, because he said Kareem really had enough of that kid on the set, and that Peter Graves was totally uncomfortable because of that whole the flirting with him. And have you seen Gladiator movies, and have you seen a grown man naked? Peter Graves, that all those lines made him so embarrassed that he never talked to the kid off set or anything like that. So the kid was,
really?
I literally just read that 2 days ago. So it's funny that you bring that up.
That's right. And I haven't heard from his son Luke at all. Again, I haven't really been, except for I've been watching the games. Has Luke made a statement at all? No, really.
I don't know if they had a falling out or anything. I don't know this, and maybe Dave shoots, because when I heard one of the folks on ESPN mention the family's name, they left his name out, and I found that very weird. Strange. They did not mention Luke Walton, which that makes no sense to me. Yeah. Was it a mistake? I don't know, but I found it very sad.
No, I don't think it would be a mistake, because he's the only other Walton.
I think he's got 2 kids plus Luke. There's 3 of them, right?
Oh, is that right? John Boy's not one of them, though, right?
No,
no John Boy. Okay. For those 1970s fans who love it. Yeah, my mom was a Waltons fan. All right. So, Dave, obviously you're following what's going on in the NBA. What do you think? The Celtics just clinched to get into the finals. I'd be really surprised if Minnesota comes back against Dallas. So you think? Go ahead, make your comments.
Well, the whole thing is surprising to me, having gone through the whole Kyrie Irving thing in Brooklyn and watching that up close, to see him get it together and lead Dallas to a 3-0 lead in that series. I think Doncic was bound for the finals at some point, but I thought Denver was the best team in the West this year. Yeah. They lacked a little toughness, but they were a great passing and shooting team, and the West, as Mike was saying before, is deeper and I thought tougher. So I think, if Dallas comes out of the West, which it looks like they will, they'll have an advantage against Boston. I was excited to watch the Knicks this year. Big step forward. They could have taken that series if Brunson hadn't gotten hurt. I watched more NBA this year than I had in a long time. I thought it was a good year for the league.
Yeah. And Russell, go ahead. You're our big NBA fan.
I picked Boston to make it through the East. I don't think it was that surprising. And when it came to who Boston was going to face, I think there was a lot of questions as to whether it would be Indy or not. We were, in other shows during this whole time, so we didn't really talk about that. But for Indy to make it as far as they did is pretty amazing, considering that they don't play any defense as a team. And Dallas is not a very good defensive team. So we're seeing kind of a surge of not great defensive teams making it far into the NBA playoffs. And some of the better defensive teams like Minnesota and Oklahoma City not making it all the way to the finals. So I think that's saying something. And Denver just looked too worn out, which is surprising because they're not that old of a team. But it shows something that when the Warriors won back-to-back titles with Durant almost had a third title, how incredibly difficult that really is to win back-to-back championships in the NBA. And the third one is even harder.
Yeah, you got to figure these guys get tired toward the end.
Absolutely. Speaking of, I don't know if we're going to make that transition there, Edward, but I'm told that Dave is on our show because he's a longtime sportscaster. I can relate to that. But I'm told in today's world, Dave, that there are actually young kids and teenagers and who knows, probably grandfathers too and grandmothers that actually want to become sportscasters. Is this still true in our and you have a little something to do with that?
Yeah, everybody thinks it's easy. No, we have done the sports broadcasting camp, it's called, and you could look it up at sportsbroadcastingcamp.com. We've done it for 23 years in Montclair, New Jersey, first at the Yogi Berra Museum, and then for the last several years just on campus at Montclair State University, where they have fantastic studios. And we have, given the year, between 40 and 80 kids. This year, we're going to be closer to 80 kids that come in from all over the country, largely from the tri-state area, but we get, youngsters from all over. And we teach them the nuts and bolts and then the philosophy as well of sportscasting and how to do it, behind the scenes stories. We bring in the biggest sportscasters in the country. Last year, we had Mike Breen, Ian Eagle, Kenny Albert, Tim Capstraw from the Brooklyn Nets, who's done their radio on WFAN for the last 22 years, is my partner in running the camp, along with Craig D'Amico. And it's a tremendous week for us every July.
Tell you what, we'll get into. I do want to ask you a couple of questions on that too. So we're going to go to our next trivia question on baseball. I'm not going to give you the hint yet because I think you're going to make a certain guess first. Which baseball player stole home 10 times? And I'm asking it this way for a certain reason. Stay with. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. One more time, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mike McDowd, Russell Jackman, our special guest, veteran broadcaster Dave Popkin. All right, guys, baseball trivia question. Which player stole home 10 times? First, give me your first guess out the gate.
Lou Brock.
Okay, Lou Brock.
I'm going to go with Ricky Henderson.
Ricky Henderson. Dave?
Jackie Robinson.
Jackie Robinson. It's funny. I would have thought Ty Cobb. Okay, now, here I'm going to ask it with just a little bit of a hint. Which player, mostly known for his home runs, stole home
Hank
10
Aaron?
times? Hank Aaron, no.
Home runs?
Mostly known for his home runs.
I mean,
rather than stealing.
Babe Ruth.
Babe Ruth, yes.
Babe Ruth, wow.
Babe Ruth stole home 10 times.
Amazing.
That I don't know how he. Of course, I'd hate to be a catcher if he came barreling in. He was kind of a stocky guy there. So, Dave, you're talking about your sportscast camp. How much does it cost for the kids to come?
It's $7.95 for the week, and it includes everything. We do a Somerset Patriots minor league baseball game where we bring them out and let them call the game and do stand-ups with cameras and lights on the concourse, and then all the studio stuff and the food and shirts and you name it, all week. So it's a pretty good deal, and then we have scholarships available to kids and families that need it.
Sure. That's it's really fun because I hadn't heard of that kind of camp before. Obviously they have like baseball camp and all that, but that's pretty good because the average kid who might not have the physical talent, might be able to do really well. In fact, now I'm gonna date myself on this one, but the old TV show The Odd Couple with Jack Klugman and Tony Randall, there was an episode with Howard Cosell, and they bring in this kid who's about maybe 10 or 12 years old to do a play-by-play for one play on Monday Night Football for Dallas Cowboys. And obviously it's scripted, but he does a great job, you know? So that's what I got to thinking about.
Yeah, we could tell right away the kids that have the talent, it's great.
In fact, you've been doing it for 20 something years. So some of the kids, how old are the kids generally when they first come in? Who take
teenagers, like high school. So yeah, there are a lot of them that are out in the world and that have broadcast, in college and professionally. Justin Shackle, that does Yankees radio now, is one of our campers. Noah Eagle, who is a big network announcer now, went to the camp.
That's fun.
A lot of our interns from the camp are, major broadcasters now, like Jared Greenberg, that does sidelines on the NBA, Emily Kaplan, that does sidelines for hockey on ESPN. It's been a who's who. The camp started with Bruce Beck, who's a famous TV anchor from New York, and Ian Eagle. They were the main teachers for many years, and then Tim and I have stepped in and helped out Dave Cerroti, who owns the camp.
So let me ask you: do you teach them both play-by-play and color?
We teach them everything from on-camera stuff. We have an actual on-camera TV coach, Patricia Stark, that comes in to teach them performance and like teleprompter and public speaking skills, all of that. And so we put them on camera in a studio setting, but we also have radio studios there. So they do talk shows, they do updates, play-by-play of both basketball and baseball, with a lot of different stuff throughout the week.
Very cool. And before we get to our next segment, for let's say anybody in the audience who wants to send their kid there, when is it and how do they get a hold of it?
It's the week of July 15th. It's 5 days that week. It's at Montclair State University in northern New Jersey. Sportsbroadcastingcamp.com is where you would go for all the info. We're going to have a lot of great, guest speakers this year again. And it's really a rewarding week for me to see the kids grow. Their confidence grows so much from day one to day 5.
Yeah. Well, you hear about how there's kind of an old joke about how the number one fear of people isn't death, it's public speaking, which means that if you're giving the eulogy, you'd rather be in the box than out of the box. Go ahead.
Yeah, and for most kids, you mentioned, you basketball camp, football camp, that kind of thing. A lot of these kids don't go to those camps. They're into Sports Center and they're into stats and they're into video games and all this stuff and into announcers. And this becomes their team. This becomes their network, and a lot of them stay close throughout the years.
Very neat. I don't
know if Dave's know, but I was involved in a sportscasting camp many years ago with the great Barry Tompkins, which is a pretty legendary guy. And Dan Malamud used to be the head basketball coach at the University of San Francisco. But these camps are invaluable for training, Dave. There's two art forms. Television is a completely different art form than radio. And I think that's something that you probably have to stress to these kids. And not only is it two different art forms, but I think it's and I'm sure you're going to concur with this, but the people that are the most successful broadcasters are the ones that work the hardest. They don't have the best talent, but they're grinders. I think that's true.
I think it's absolutely true. You have to have some kind of a voice. It doesn't have to be a big baritone, traditional sportscaster voice, but it has to cut through and it has to be unique and people have to know that it's you. And then the rest of it, there's some luck and timing involved and who but by and large, it's hard work. If you put more work into the game than everybody else, and I tell the kids, I want to know more about these two teams than anyone in the arena except the coaches. Okay. I want to know more than all of the fans and the officials and the players or whatever. I need to know about all the eventualities that could happen in this game. And that's why I still love calling games myself, because it's a mental and it's a creative challenge, because you just don't know what's going to happen when you get to the arena.
Right. And
do you, I was gonna say, do you have like an exercise where you get them to, let's say, watch a professional game and actually do like as though they're doing the play-by-play?
Yeah. For one of the groups, we have them watch NBA, and we have them do charts like a regular sportscaster would, so that they're prepared, and then they can call it off of a monitor. And then the baseball game, they make their notes and their charts as well, but they do that live in the stadium.
And Dave, you have to put on your journalism hats. I have a news background as well, so that news background served me quite well, because you have to go talk to those coaches. You have to talk to the offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators. You've got to get some insight to bring. You're a storyteller. That's the big word today, storytelling. But it's true.
Yeah, you're there to report on the game, and it just so happens that you don't have an edit button like a writer would have to edit the story. You just have to report on the fly, give the who, what, where, when, why, how, and do it in an entertaining way without making mistakes. It's a very hard job.
Yeah, and it is entertainment. Do you not agree with that?
It is. It has to be. It can't be boring. I am never boring on the air. I don't think anybody would ever accuse me of that. I'll tell stories and work in a joke or a music reference or something, just to keep the audience engaged and wonder, what is he going to say next?
That's what I always tell guests. Well, obviously I don't tell someone like you, but I said, most important thing, you can't swear because of the FCC rules. But also I said, I want to make good radio. We just don't want any dead air time.
Totally.
With these guys, with these characters, Russ and Mike, I never have to worry about dead air time.
Hey, speaking, Dave just had a great story. I'm going to say this in 3 seconds. I just saw Earth, Wind, and Fire and Lionel Richie. That's all I got to say. So you never know what the hell I'm going to say. I just said it. Phenomenal concert. That's all I got.
Oh, they're great.
Go see them. Legendary. Yep. I think they're the Frank Sinatra. I think real Lionel Richie's the Frank Sinatra of our era. I do. He was unbelievable.
Huh. Well, and how he's got to be what,
73?
74. 73. Wow.
74.
I saw Mick Jagger the other night, and he was dancing around, just dashing around the stage. He was amazing at 80.
At 80, yeah. Well, it's funny because everyone always kind of you assume all the Stones because they are like Richard. Keith Richards,
about 95
but having like blood transfusions all the time. But if I understood it correctly, I don't think Mick Jagger really did much in the drinking and the drugs. Is what I heard.
I think from the 80s on, he was pretty clean, and he lives a very clean lifestyle now, where he like sings and dances every day, and I think he's a vegetarian, and he's just like really healthy.
Yeah.
I saw Frankie Valli, who's almost 90 years old, with the Jersey Boys in Florida, and I got to tell you, he can still move. He can still sing. I mean, that's a legend.
Right? Wow.
Frankie Valli.
Yeah. I know. That's if for those who have not seen the Jersey Boys, I saw them in Vegas and in San Francisco, and it was awesome. I mean, even my daughter, who was young at the time, really go, this music's really good. I said, yeah, I kind of grew up with that, when I was a kid.
It was fun.
Hey, Dave, do you actually tell these kids just how tough a business this is? My first job was in Prescott, Arizona. I made $10.50 a month. My second job was in Santa Maria, California. I didn't make squat. I barely survived. Do you tell the reality of how brutal this business is?
We do. And we tell them that just because you're at this camp, it doesn't mean you're going to be on the air. Like, there's a lot of roles. When I do a TV game on CBS Sports Network, there's like 25 or 30 people on the crew, and all of those people are part of the team and are vital. So there may only be 2 or 3 announcers that day, but there's a lot of room in this business, and there's a lot of content out there. So there are jobs out there, but it's hard. It's still as hard as ever to make it at the top level. So yeah, we don't sugarcoat it for them. But we also want to encourage them and not squash their dreams. So we keep it real, and we give them the stories. Like, my first job was in Sioux City, Iowa for $700 a month.
Well, the other thing is that I had, for radio, there's someone, I won't mention his name, but he was very good at his job, and he was saying the frustration with him was he was making the same amount that he was like last year that he made in 1988.
Yeah,
I mean, there's no. It's all like, I don't think prices have stayed the same since then. But
you know why? Because they've got you over the barrel. Because there's 10 other, 100 other people that want that job. My rate at Seton Hall has not changed much in the last 21 years.
It's unreal. And then, and not only that, Dave, one of the things that I know, at least as you just mentioned, there's so many different people working with you and a crew and et cetera, et cetera. You've got to treat people with kindness and care and respect.
Yeah.
Because if you don't come in there and think that you're, Mr. This and that, because you're not. And I think that relationship building is critical. Do you agree?
We absolutely teach that, and we bring in somebody specifically to speak to that. There's a guy, John Fanta, that you may know. He's on Fox and FS1. He does basketball and bowling and baseball, all kinds of sports. He's a terrific young announcer. He's in his late 20s, went to Seton Hall. I've known him for a long time, and he's a relationship builder. Everybody loves him. The fans love him. The crews love him. He's like a Chris Farley type. He's a character, and he's just a lovable personality, and that helps him get jobs.
And if you keep your humble spirit, that's the thing. Is I don't care who you are. You got to keep a humble spirit. All right, hey guys, we're going to go to our last commercial break here. It's been fun. It's a fast hour, I'll tell you. Okay, so baseball question: name the only 2 days of the year in which there are no professional sports games. This would be either MLB, NBA, NHL, or NFL, the four major ones, all right? Only 2 days of the year in which there are no professional sports games. So we're not counting stuff like boxing, which, there may be boxing or MMA. So we're talking about the four major ones, all right? That's our trivia question. Stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be right back with some closing comments and Russell's favorite part of the day, the thoughts for the day. Right, Russell?
Yeah, I tried to get through it.
Grumble. He's grumbling like Lurch. All right.
Well,
welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mike McDowd, Russell Jackman, our special guest, veteran broadcaster Dave Popkin. And our third trivia question: name the only 2 days of the year in which there are no professional sports games. And we're talking about the four major leagues, MLB, NBA, NHL, or NFL.
Day after the All-Star game.
That's right. The day before and the day after the All-Star game.
Right.
Yeah. Because you're not in football season. Basketball's over. NHL's over. And then MLB, they go, nope. We need these guys to rest up for the All-Star.
I try really hard to make it to survive those days. And thank God for professional wrestling.
Yeah, professional wrestling. Exactly. Hey, Dave, let me ask you, because you're a longtime baseball fan. For me, I stopped watching the All-Star game. I don't remember what year, but it just wasn't the same. Same thing with basketball. They just don't the All-Star game's not the same anymore.
Yeah, I still like it because I get to see some of the young players that I may not see on an everyday basis. Like I don't get to see the West Coast teams all the time. So, to see the best player from the Padres or the Giants or something like that is cool. And if it's in a historic stadium, I like that. I still like any baseball game.
Gotcha. All right, guys, we're going to cut out. Here's our thoughts for the day. Thank you again, Dave, for being our guest today. It was great. We'll have to have you back. Okay, so I'm going to actually give you a couple of quotes. One's from George Carlin, and the other one is from Golda Meir. So from George Carlin: have you ever noticed that anybody driving slower than you is an idiot, and anyone going faster than you is a maniac? That's kind of true,
Yeah,
and Golda Meir, I love this one. She said, "Don't be so humble. You're not that great."
That's good.
Also, it's interesting. She was the one, I think, who said when they were talking about war, she said if back then it was, the Arabs, right? Palestinians, Arabs, et cetera, or our enemies. If our enemies laid down their guns, there would be no war, right? If Israel laid down its arms, there would be no more Israel. And that's true, too. All right. Tune in next week to Sports Econ 101. We're going to be discussing sports topics from a business perspective and asking more sports trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm Edward Brown, your host. We'll see you next week.
Dude out.
So long.